Good morning. Just confirming that the clerk's office is ready to go. Okay. Thank you. I now call to order this work session of the Anchorage Assembly. It is Friday, June 17, 2022, and we are noticed from 10 a.m. to noon. We will start with Assembly member introductions.
Hi, Randy Salt, District 6.
Suzanne LaFrance, and do we have anyone on the phone? No one on the phone yet. We do have some members who are excused today. Ms. Quinn Davidson, Mr. Rivera, Ms. Allard, Mr. Perez Verdilla, Mr. Constant have all asked to be excused. And then I will go to Ms. Jones for further introductions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am very pleased to introduce a group of election officials that you have here. First, I'd like to introduce Gail Fanumii. She is the Director of the Division of Elections for the state of Alaska, and we're thrilled that she's here. Thank you so much, Gail. Also, I'd like to introduce Amanda Moser. She's with Alaskans for Better Elections, and also the former deputy clerk for the municipality of Anchorage, who ran Anchorage municipal elections for many years. So thank you for being here, Amanda. And I'd also like to introduce Jamie Hines. Jamie Hines is our current deputy clerk of elections and the former clerk for the city of Kenai, Alaska. So we have a very amazing group with broad knowledge about elections. So I hope you really enjoy this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones, and thank you, Ms. Fanumii, Ms. Moser, and Ms. Hines in particular for being here today. I want to note that any documents for this work session are available at muni.org, and if you click on Assembly and at the top, Assembly Work Sessions, scroll down to today, and you will find the documents for this work session there. And with that, I believe I'm turning to, or which one of you is going first? Ms. Fanumii. Aye.
Thank you so much for having me here today. I am going to just make a very short presentation about the new nonpartisan primary and ranked choice voting from the administrative side of things. I'm not going to address the why do we need this, what does it do for candidates, et cetera, et cetera. I will leave that up to Ms. Moser to discuss because we are focusing simply on administering it and getting the information out to the public. So as you know, this was a citizen-driven initiative that passed in the 2020 general election by 3,781 votes. So it was a very close vote. It's also known as the Alaska's Better Election Initiative, hence Alaskans for Better Elections. And the law took effect February of 2021. So the division started working on implementing and policies and procedures and educational tools, but also appreciate the partnership of Alaska for Better Elections because they are making the rounds across the state and also helping explain the process so voters aren't surprised when they go to the polling places in August. Okay, there we go. So first, we're going to talk about the nonpartisan top 4 primary, which is a little old news right now because you all experienced this when you received your special primary election ballot, which for the first time was one ballot for all voters with all candidates appearing on that ballot, regardless of what their political affiliation is. And as you saw with the special primary election, 48 candidates, and the top 4, you vote for one still. It's only a vote for one race. And after the results are certified, then the top 4 vote getters are going to advance to the general election. So we kind of stopped using the term top 4. We did not want to confuse voters and think they get to vote for 4 because no, it is still a vote for one primary, just a much different look and feel to what the ballot looks like. So this is a sample of the ballot. a sample ballot, and you saw this again in your voter packet. What I want to point out is, if I can figure out how to get the clicker, this notice here was required by law, and it's letting voters know that the affiliation the candidate puts next to their name on the ballot is how they indicated when they filed their declaration of candidacy how they wanted to appear on the ballot. And it doesn't mean that the party nominated or endorsed the candidate. It is simply how the candidate is affiliated with the Division of Elections.
And if I could just briefly interrupt to note for the record, we have been joined by Mr. Peterson.
So under the United States Senator box here, you'll see there are 5 candidates listed and with different political affiliations. And that's what this nonpartisan primary allows for all candidates in a race, regardless of their party affiliation, to appear on one ballot. So no longer will voters have to choose which ballot they want based on their party affiliation when you go to the precinct for the August 16th primary. There might be, as you have seen with our candidate list at this point in time for the primary election, there are some races that have less than 4 candidates. And so what will happen there is all of them will advance to the general election. No write-ins are allowed in the primary, so they're just all will advance. I think the biggest change, aside from all candidates appearing on one ballot, is that the governor and lieutenant governor, when they filed for office, they had to file as a team. So they had to file together. There was nothing required that they had to be of the same affiliation. They had to file together, and they will appear together for the first time on the primary ballot. As you recall, in prior elections, they ran independently, and the top vote getter for Party A for governor was paired with the top vote getter for Party A for lieutenant governor. Not the case anymore. Just a quick summary again, there is no longer a nominating petition process. So candidates can't bypass the primary election and go out and collect signatures and just appear on the general election ballot. So you have to be on the primary ballot. And if you don't advance, then there is an opportunity still for them to declare as an official write-in candidate. So write-ins are still allowed in the general election. So now we're going to move into the topic of ranked choice voting, which we will see for the first time on August 16th when we have the special general election to fill the remainder of Congressman Young's term. So previously elections were winner takes all. It didn't matter if you had 30% of the vote, if you had 80% of the vote, whoever had the most votes wins. That changed with this initiative. And as you can see here, we still have the same notice, just telling people, again, voters, that just because they say registered blank doesn't mean they're endorsed by the party or the party has nominated them, because the primary no longer serves as a nominating tool for the parties to advance their candidates to the general election. You rank candidates in order of your preference. You can rank one, you can rank them all. It is entirely up to the voter to decide how many candidates they want to vote, how many candidates they want to rank. And ranking more candidates doesn't affect your first choice vote. Your first choice vote will stay your first choice vote as throughout the whole process, unless your candidate gets eliminated. And then, of course, in the past, in the November election, you will see, yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Schultz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just a question, in your literature, do you show like examples of right ways and wrong ways to fill out? Could I just see people marking 2 for a candidate, or either 2 in the same column or 2 in the same row? So
I have some examples. I'll get to it in a little bit. Yeah. And of course, they're just examples. I mean, we're not advocating what to do, not to do. We just want to point out mistakes voters should think about to avoid when they're voting their ballot. And then in the general, also judicial candidates and the Constitutional Convention question obviously are only yes, no votes. It's hard to rank when you just have, Okay, so now we're gonna talk about marking your ballot. So you'll see that the ballots are now, they still have candidates in rows, and you're going to see that there are columns with first choice through fifth choice. The fifth choice is required because the law did not eliminate write-in candidates, so write-ins are still allowed. And when you mark your ballot, the message we're trying to get out, and Amanda's group is as well, is just rank one candidate for one choice. Don't try to double fill in ovals for like all of first choice, because it does cause problems down the road. So what we're trying to say is make sure that you fill in one oval per row. So in the columns, you don't see more than one oval filled in. People kind of refer to this ballot similar to Sudoku. It's like you can't put the same number in. That game is so confusing. This is much easier for me to understand. So, so this is an example. If somebody just wanted to vote for Tiffany Straight, this is their first choice, and you don't have to rank more than one. Your first choice will stay in the running until your first choice is eliminated. And then in this example, if Tiffany got eliminated in any of the rounds, the ballot would be deemed inactive because there are no other options. Just inactive for this race. I keep saying ballot is inactive. That's not the case. For this race, the ballot would be considered inactive. So if you only vote for one candidate, like I said, your vote is going to stay with that candidate throughout tabulation, as long as that candidate is a viable candidate. So now we're going to get into some of the mistakes to avoid. This example shows a vote for first choice and skipping second choice, and then voting third and fourth choice. So if this happens, if this is how a ballot is marked, what's going to happen? If Mac gets eliminated at some point in the rounds, the next choice that's valid on this ballot would be Tiffany. So Tiffany would actually become the second choice in this situation. And then Edna would become the third choice. Now, this example is something that the law specifically speaks about. Skipping two sequential rankings. It's not allowed. I mean, it's allowed, but there are consequences if that happens. So in this case, Larry's your first choice, and then they skipped second and third and marked in a fourth choice. So what's going to happen here is only the rankings before the two sequential skipped are going to count. So in this ballot example, Larry is the only viable vote on this example here, because this voter skipped 2 and 3. And so the fourth choice is deemed not valid, and the race becomes inactive. However, if they do first and second, then skip third, fourth, and fifth, that's a completely different issue. If you give a candidate more than one ranking, nothing after that will count. So in this example, this is a first choice vote for Larry Doe, and then Mac and Edna received the same vote for second choice. That's what we call an overvote. And the law says at the point of the overvote, everything else, is null and void. So in this example, voters may just really want to say, this is Tiffany and I only want Tiffany, so I'm going to vote for Tiffany all the way across. But your vote's only going to count once. It's only going to count one time for Tiffany. Tiffany doesn't get a second and a third round vote. She only gets one. Because we're able to determine how this is different from an overvote is we're able to determine voter intent. It's very clear that this voter really wanted Tiffany. And so Tiffany's going to get a first round vote. And then after that, there would be nothing else on this ballot that could get counted. Enough examples, or did you have any other questions about examples? Okay. So now we're going to just gloss over how ballots are tabulated. In an RCV system, it's not enough just to know who gets first, second, and third votes. You have to look at the unique combination on the ballot to determine who's still in, who's not still in. And then, so it's not just as easy as going, oh, Bill got all these first choice votes and Bob got second. So Bob's going to get all of, it doesn't work that way. So we count in rounds. And at the end of counting all the first choice votes, if nobody gets 50% plus one vote, then we have to move on to the tabulation rounds. And you keep going until there are only two candidates left. And ultimately, the candidate with the most votes will win. So let's just say this is your ballot. So candidate C, it gets a first choice. Candidate B is your second. D is your third. And candidate A is your fourth. So we've set a little simple election. We have 20 votes. So 11 votes is 50% plus one. So at the end of round one, all the first choice counting, nobody received that magic number. So that means we have to proceed then to the next round. And as you can see in this example, candidate C is the candidate who had the least number of votes. So that candidate is going to be eliminated. And the second choice on all of those three ballots are going to be then distributed to the remaining active candidates. So in this example, candidate B was your second choice, and candidate B gets one of those votes, and then we just hypothetically have reassigned a vote to candidate A and to candidate D. So now candidate A has 7 votes, candidate D has, no, candidate, I can't count. Candidate A has 8 votes, candidate B has 7 votes, and candidate D has 5. And there's still 3 candidates remaining, so we have to keep going to the next round. So in the example above, candidate D had the least number of votes, 5. And so we then looked at the next viable candidate on the remaining ballots and redistributed them. Candidate B got 4 of the 5, and candidate A got 1. So candidate B is going to be your winner at the end because they ended up with the most votes. So when we did this PowerPoint, we were thinking that ranked choice voting was going to happen in November. Well, it's going to happen in August now. So even though I have these dates here, the timeline still works the same for the August 16th special general election. So on election night, we're going to count only the first choice results, and we're going to report unofficial results on election night as we always have. And then we're going to from election day through day 15, because by law in a general election, 15 days to receive by mail ballots. So we're going to keep counting first choice votes and keep releasing new unofficial results of first choice votes until the last eligible ballot is counted on November 23rd, which otherwise I think, or August 31st for the special general election. Thanks. Oops. And so then on November 23rd, we'll look and determine which races did not get 50% plus 1, and then do the tabulation as was described earlier. So that is the end of our very short presentation. Available to answer questions, or maybe you want to have Amanda get started, and then we could do a tag team. Or if there's questions now.
Ms. Jones?
Through the chair, Gail, when you do the tabulation, so you're going to have more than one race so on the ballot. And so does the round 1 and round 2 happen for all races all at once?
Any race that requires, through the chair, I'm sorry. Any race that requires tabulation is identified, and they will happen at the same time. And then we will be providing, we're working on our informational reports of what those round results will look like. And what's going to happen, I have just thinking, we have the list of candidates, their first choice votes, and it's going to tell round by round who got eliminated and where those ballots then got redistributed or retabulated. And so it happens literally like that. I mean, it's fast. And so we'll be releasing those. They're called detailed ranked choice voting reports, and we'll be releasing those on day 15.
It looks fascinating. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fenumiai. Ms. Moser, if you want to go ahead.
Madam Chair, I believe Mr. Cross is online.
Thank you, Mr. Salt. Mr. Cross, just confirming you are there and can hear okay.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I don't have anyone else. I have someone from the municipality online, but I don't have Mr. Cross.
Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Through the chair, Amanda Moser with Alaskans for Better Elections. Thank you so much for this opportunity to come and talk about Alaska's new election system. As Barbara mentioned at the beginning, I had the honor of working for the municipality of Anchorage and specifically the Anchorage Assembly for 8 years in the clerk's office. And so it is a joy to be here today, and it feels very much like coming back home. I'm going to share some information that sort of echoes a lot of stuff that Gail shared with you, but then we will also get to go through and have a practical example of what our new election system looks like. So we are going to talk about what's going to happen this year. And as folks recognize, we have a special election happening on top of our primary and general election that were already scheduled for this year. We're going to give an overview of the new system, very similar to what Gail just talked about. We're going to talk a little bit more about how votes are counted. And we're going to talk a little bit about, why we are here and do a quick recap. So last Saturday, we had the special election, the Pick One primary for the election to fill the remaining of Congressman Don Young's term. We are still in the process of allowing votes to come in and be tabulated. As folks know, on the primary, we had the Title 15, which governs Alaskan elections, allows 10 days after the primary for ballots to come in. So the state has been releasing results. And this was a primary conducted by mail. And so voters across the state of Alaska received their ballots and had the opportunity to have time to educate themselves on the 48 candidates on the ballot, as ballots were mailed out April 27th, and then returned those ballots. The next is the August 16th, and this is going to be the special general election, which will be Alaskans' first opportunity to experience the ranked choice voting system of this new election system, as well as the regularly scheduled primary. And once again, that's really important to remember that in the primary, it's always pick one. And then in the general, it's ranked choice. And so in August, you'll have the opportunity to experience the full system on one ballot. And then November, the general election with the ranked choice voting. And both the August 16th and the November 8th elections are going to be in person at your polling location. And also just an important thing to note in this world that's constantly changing, we have new district lines. And so potentially you will have a new polling location that's different than what you've had in the past. And I anticipate the states mailing out their new voter cards, and it'll be important to make sure that you are up to date on where your polling location is, as it potentially has changed from where you voted in 2020. And Alaskans for Better Elections was the group that came together with the ballot initiative, and we have pivoted, and we are now really supporting an education system to make sure Alaskans are all confident and empowered in the process when they go to the polls in August and in November. And so a lot of what we are talking about is really supporting the State of Alaska Division of Elections and the fantastic work that they are doing to make sure that Alaskans do have that confidence in this new system. So the new system includes this two-part system, and the first one is the pick one primary, followed by the ranked choice general election. And really important to note, this is for state elections, and it applies to the U.S. House, U.S. Senate, governor, and all of the state legislature. It does not apply to our local elections, which I think this body is well aware because we are in the middle of a special election for the North Anchorage seat. And so starting with the pick one primary, and Gail did a phenomenal job. I was writing down all of her talking points because they were so good, but it's really important to note that all primaries from here on out are an open primary. All voters will vote for their favorite candidate. All voters get the same ballot. All candidates are on the ballot, and you choose your favorite, and all top 4 vote getters will advance to the general election. And so let's practice this because I think it's always best to have a little hands-on experience. And so everybody should have a ballot and their candidates. And on the ballot, there is a QR code at the top, and I'll go to the next slide, which also has it. And you can just scan it with your smartphone. And so for those who aren't familiar, we have a very controversial Sour Patch Kid election. There are 5 Sour Patch flavors. We have Carrie Cherry, Rhonda Raspberry, Oliver Orange, Louis Lemon, and Linda Lime. And we are going to participate first in the pick one primary. So you will just choose your all-time favorite and vote for that one. And then our top 4 vote getters will advance to the general election. And I need everyone in the room to vote because we do need a certain number of voters to set it up for a general. So I'm also going to vote, but I won't tell you who my favorite is. And so the open primary allows all voters to, You can scan the QR code. Oh, you can't? I have it on this slide. Is that too much to? Jamie can help you. Because you can vote from somebody else's phone. So the open primaries, more than 60% of Alaskan voters do not affiliate with a major political party. We have a lot of undeclared and nonpartisan voters in Alaska. And this new system allows all voters to be able to vote for all candidates. The previous closed primaries, you would, if you were a registered Republican or a registered Democrat, you would have access to that, but it would just feature those candidates. And if you maybe were interested in a race that was on the Republican ticket for governor, but you were also interested in a race for U.S. Senate that was on the Democratic ticket, you would only have access to one ballot. And this allows all voters to have access to all candidates on one ballot, and then the top 4 vote getters advance. And I think it's been interesting to see too, there's a lot of races on this that have multiple candidates that are all in the same political party, and all Alaskans will have the opportunity to be able to vote for those candidates. So now moving on to ranked choice voting. And we're going to once again switch back and talk about our very controversial Sour Patch Kids candidates. And so on the backside of your ballot, there's a second QR code, and we'll see if we have. So if you'll scan the backside of that, you will get access to the ranked choice general election, and you'll get to go through and practically experience how to navigate this space. And I am someone who always feels like once I've experienced something once, it's so much easier to understand and to explain and talk about. And so we've really started to focus on providing these opportunities for Alaskans to experience it, because I will just take a moment and be very vulnerable. Like I, in 2020, was working focused on downtown, and I wasn't paying attention to this ballot initiative or this world. And I didn't really understand all of this until I sort of stepped into this space. And one thing that I recognized was it's a complicated thing if you're trying to talk about it. But once folks experience something, it becomes really a lot easier to understand. And then it makes it also easier to talk about. And so we've tried to set up a lot of these sort of lighthearted, fun mock elections as a way for folks to experience it and to recognize that it is an easy thing to go through and to do. And of course, I love the example of like the Sudoku. It's like, yeah, you just want to make sure that you get one in each box. And if you go through and practice, you can see that it'll tell you on this system that we're using if it'll flag if you voted incorrectly. And so you can have this understanding as you go into the polls. And one thing too that we like to talk about is you will have access to sample ballots before election days. And so it's important, if you want to go through and educate yourself on the candidates and make those decisions, you can go through and you can vote your sample ballot and you can take it with you into the polling location on election day. It's important to note, like, you can't display it, you can't publicly share that information, but you can use it as a guide when you're voting, and it's really helpful. And because you are now educating yourself on all the candidates. And I think, we live in this world where there's a spectrum of happiness. So I might be really excited about Carrie Cherry. Like, that is always like the first flavor that I'm going to pick out of if they're Sour Patch Kids on a table in front of me. But I also would be like just as happy with Rhonda Raspberry. It's not like my top, but like there's a lot of sort of like elements to the flavor that I enjoy. And like, probably like Louis Lemon would be my third, and then Oliver Orange is, pretty good. I'm not going to turn it down, but it's not my top 5. So you're able to go through and experience what's that like to sort of have that. And the great thing is like, if Carrie Cherry isn't a top vote getter and she's the 4th candidate and she's eliminated, I still have a vote for Rhonda Raspberry, and Rhonda Raspberry has that opportunity to advance forward. And so that is how you go through and do that. And if you're going to vote in the write-in, make sure you fill in the oval and then also write in the candidate. This example I'm recognizing, we have a write-in example, but we didn't write it in 2010. Amanda would be very disappointed in myself right now for doing that. And so Gail did a great job talking about a lot of these. You have the opportunity to vote for one, but you can't vote across for all of them. If you vote for the same candidate all the way down, that does count as an overvote. And so here's another way to kind of go through and look at how votes are counted. And the one thing that I love about this system that you were able to do here is it goes through and it shows you how votes are counted for our specific Sour Patch Kid election, but we can kind of walk through and use it a little similar to what Gail walked through. And so of course, the system requires a candidate to have a majority of support. And so and this just sort of is a space for all Alaskans to have some level of commitment to this candidate. And so here in this example, none of our candidates have that 50%. And so we look at Louis Lemon, who was our fourth ranked candidate, and Louis Lemon is eliminated. And then the second choice votes for Louis Lemon are then redistributed to the other candidates that are still in the race. So Carrie Cherry, Rhonda Raspberry, and Oliver Orange. And as we go on the second round, we still don't have somebody that has 50%. And so then we have Oliver Orange eliminated. And we have Rhonda Raspberry, who comes into first place with the majority of Alaskans that have on that sort of spectrum of happiness, Rhonda as somebody that they are supporting. And to really highlight this, on election night, only the first choice results are going to be published. And it'll be 15 days before all of the results, including the second and third rounds, are published. And it's just really important to note that the 15-day deadline really supports our uniformed and overseas voters having the opportunity to have their voice heard. And so that 15 days allows those ballots to come in from those voters. And then we will begin to see the rounds after 15 days. So it'll be a moment where we will all get to really focus on patience as we wait to see those results. And just to really, as we're waiting for those results, to recognize that this system that we have allows voters that are overseas and serving in the military to have the opportunity to participate and have their voice heard. And so that is why we are waiting. And then round by round, the vote totals will be released. And it sounds like they're going to be released all at once right away. I'm really excited to see those informational reports that are going to come out from the Division of Elections. We don't have internet access, so we were just to show you the how the Sour Patch Kid election went, but you can see it on your phone, which is really cool for those folks who clicked on that. You can see how everybody else in the room voted, who they're, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Moser. So I have a question. This is a really great exercise, and just scrolling through the results and seeing how it works is really helpful. Is this kind of app available online for people then to use?
Yeah, so to the chair. We are using this app called Ranked Vote, and we have an account through them. And so we've done all sorts of different elections. Right now, you're in the Sour Patch Kid election. We've also done, we did a donut election on National Donut Day. We've had a really fun social event, and we did a beer ranking with some 49th State Brewing Company beers. But this is available, and if the assembly would like us to set up an election that you could have on your social media or anything like that, we would love to support that. And we'd love to provide other opportunity, any kind of fun thing like this, or if you have some events coming up, or maybe at the next assembly meeting, or however we can support the Division of Elections. Yeah.
Through the chair. So the division has been using this app too. When we first started with ranked choice, we were like, vote for your favorite seafood was our first one, top 4. And then our most recent one, when we had the student art contest for I voted stickers and the official election pamphlet, we started out with the top 4 for the stickers, not for the covers. We didn't have enough. And then we did the ranked choice for that. So we're trying to use this as much as possible also.
Thank you so much. And I want to note, we're a small group here. So if Randy and Pete, if just jump in with questions.
Yeah, so however we can support and collaborate and work together, I think we're really committed right now to making sure that Alaskans are confident and empowered in the process. And however we can have, I think once you go through and experience it and see how the results are tabulated, you get such a better sense of how this works. And so please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to collaborate with the clerk's office and find some opportunities to do this. I think and the more you can have sort of like a fun, lighthearted approach is really great for learning. It's cool too, when we do social events, because I think people learn a lot of different ways. Like some people are visual learners, some people like to hear it, but I think most folks can go through and experience it. And if you have it in a casual sort of fun environment, it makes it so much easier. So when we do like a donut election, and it's like friends hanging out, and people can kind of go through and talk it through together and understand how it works. And then they can kind of sort of go to the other end of the sort of political aspect of like, oh, okay, now I can see that, this is how this could work in this space. And so absolutely.
I'm actually wondering if we could just, for a couple minutes, talk about the results of this election. I know it said Carrie Cherry defeated the other candidates with 49% of the votes, sometimes due to exhausted votes. Read below, the candidate with the strongest support does not quite get a majority. And then it shows how the votes were distributed in the different rounds. Can you talk about exhausted votes? Or maybe you were planning to later.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I was going to walk through it here, but I'm just going and
And later's fine. I was just reading through, and hopefully the others have been able to look at the results visualization round 1, 2, and 3.
So there's power in ranked choice voting if you rank more candidates. So if you rank a first, second, and third choice, if it goes to round voting, then and your first candidate, when it goes to the rounds, if your first choice is eliminated, then your voice moves forward in the place of your second choice. And the exhausted is, if you didn't vote beyond, first or second, and it goes to third round, then your voice isn't in that because you haven't given the power to your vote by ranking candidates. And that's in that space of sort of like the spectrum of happiness. Like, I'm team Carrie Cherry. Like, cherry is always my favorite flavor. And I always want that. But I love Sour Patch Kids. And if Carrie Cherry is not available, like, I'm going to have Rhonda Raspberry second. And, I think it's kind of like a toss up between the Louis Lemon and the Linda Lime and the Oliver Orange for me. But, you can give yourself power to have someone that you agree with on some of the issues moving forward. And that is really the strength of that. And I only have like a brief little moment on the sort of some of the benefits. And it's a lot of these things that we've been talking about throughout. And it's ranked choice voting really ensures that a candidate has the support of the majority of voters to win, eliminates the spoiler effect, and encourages candidates to engage with voters on the issues. A winning coalition has a strong first choice votes as well as the second place support. And I always think this is really funny. We were talking with some folks that have worked on ranked choice voting elections nationwide, and they were talking about one of the benefits also of ranked choice voting is that it sometimes changes the tenor of elections because you are, as a candidate, thinking about who getting those first choice votes, but there's also the value in the second choice votes. And so sometimes it takes away some of the negative campaigning. And someone was mentioning the New York City election, and they were like, oh, and that was incredible. And then somebody else was like, no, that election was terrible still. And they're like, well, you hadn't seen it before. And so that is one of the values of it too, is that, you sort of are looking to think about the ways that you as a candidate can connect with voters on a lot of different levels, thinking about the value of having those first and second and third choices. And so quick recap.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what I didn't catch, what's the spoiler? What is the spoiler?
The spoiler is, I think that's, when a candidate gets knocked out in the primary because of the closed primary system.
All right, thank you.
And so just quick recap. Our elections are a pick one primary and then the ranked choice general election. And we're experiencing it right now with the last Saturday's pick one primary. And now we are working really diligently to make sure that Alaskans are prepared and educated. Really highlighting and stressing the pick one primaries, that you have the opportunity. You had great choice. You know, there was incredible candidate participation in the special election with 48 Alaskans stepping forward, and Alaskans got to choose their favorite, and then those top 4 vote getters, and we're still waiting for those final results to come in, are going to move on to the ranked choice special election in August, but all the system will always be a pick one primary and a ranked choice general election.
Thank you so much, Ms. Moser. Randy or Mr.
So,
Soltz?
yep, thank you through the chair. So quick question. So as kind of mouthpieces for you, we're going to be out there probably trying to educate voters on this. Are there any videos or links that we can share with people rather than us trying to explain, say, hey, go have this experience, go watch this video?
Through the chair. So the division has videos on our website. So just go to elections.alaska.gov, and we have a page dedicated to the new voting systems, and there's several videos on there. We also have been, we did run some videos, paid television spots also. So we do have videos, and then there are also a lot of good videos online. I really like the one that has the stickies that they move, and it's very visual. And it's not ours, but I think it was like Minnesota maybe or something. But it just helps to see, you know, how the colors move throughout the process.
Alaskans for Better Elections is really committed to making sure that Alaskans are confident and educated on the process. And so we are in the final stages of a video that we'll be releasing and sharing with our partners. We've teamed up with all sorts of Get Out the Native Vote, AARP, and other organizations to support this outreach efforts. But I will make sure that Barbara gets some of these videos that Gail was talking about, because there is like a really great selection of them. And I think, you know, I mentioned there's all sorts of different learning styles, and the visual learners, the videos are really great, and we'll get them to all of the members. And then maybe the clerk's office might share some of the stuff on the social media too for the public. And I think, you know, as elected officials, you are so often, even though this isn't the election system that you're elected on and that is with the municipality of Anchorage, I think that sort of citizens don't always recognize that. And so elected officials are often turned to, and especially when you're at community councils and in public picnics and stuff like this, folks really want education. And so however we can support you so you feel confident discussing this, like, we're here to help in that space.
Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Have you set up anything at the senior centers? Because I think senior voters are going to have many more questions and much more heartache about this change.
Through the chair, thank you, Assembly Member Peterson. We were out at the Gateway Community Council in the Valley 2 weeks ago, and we got that also guidance from the elected officials out there. And so they've been working with us to get connected to the Eagle River Senior Center, which I've been mentioning has always been a great polling location for our municipal elections. And so, yes, we are in the process of connecting with all the senior centers, and we're working closely with AARP. So that's been really helpful too, to make sure that we are connecting. And we have a educational piece that is going out with all of the food boxes that are distributed in July. And so we think that'll be very helpful for voters for the upcoming August. And so, but always excited and grateful to hear of other opportunities. And so we'll make sure we really connect with those seniors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Mr. Soltz, you're good. Okay. I have a question, and I know that the state is in the middle of tabulating the results still. And I'm just wondering if you have a sense from questions you receive from members of the public so far, or any initial observations as to what might be points of confusion surrounding ranked choice, or what areas might need further clarification. For example, the pick one primary, that's very clear, and that makes a lot of sense. I think that just from feedback I received, some people were under the impression initially they got to pick 4, which with 48 candidates isn't, I can understand, why people might have that conclusion, but just curious if you have a sense of some areas maybe that are a bit confusing to folks. Thanks.
Yes, Ms. Chair. I think you nailed it, though. The pick 4 in the primary was the biggest thing because we kept saying top 4, top 4, top 4. So we're moving away from that, and I'm going to plagiarize their pick 1 primary tagline, and I think we're going to just start using that as well, so people will get used to hearing the same message. It's a vote for one, vote for one, vote for one. Making that as clear as we can in everything we get. I think the general election part of things will be very obvious to people because there are only going to be a maximum of 4 printed names in each race, plus a line for write-in. So striving to just make it clear how to maximize your vote by not making some of those mistakes that we mentioned that I showed earlier is our goal. And I'm sure it's the goal of Alaskans for Better Elections as well.
Yeah, and just to sort of echo what Gail is saying, I will say that I think Alaskans heard about ranked choice voting for 2.5 years and then didn't understand, and then people did call it the top 4 primary, and that created confusion. And I will say, I will be very vulnerable on the record here. I did not realize that it was you just voted for one in primary because I already mentioned in 2020 I was really focused on downtown Anchorage and I wasn't really paying attention to the ballot initiative. And I, was hearing about ranked choice voting and I didn't really fully understand the full process. And then, when I transitioned into this role, that's where the pick 1 primary came from because I was like, we want to make sure that we are using language that makes it very clear how voters participate. And if you call it a top 4 primary, in my brain, that connects to me that I get a vote for the top 4, and especially when there's 48 candidates on the ballot. So, we pivoted and we really started focusing on that pick 1 primary messaging, recognizing that is very, very possible that a lot of other Alaskans felt that same way and just didn't have that same. And I will say too, I want to highlight the division of elections. It said twice on the ballot, vote for one in 2 different places. And so it's always helpful, like the more you can reinforce the message.
So with the candidacy withdrawal deadline coming up, we're also developing a sample ballot of what the primary / special general election will look like. It's going to be one ballot. And all the traditional primary races are going to be on the front of the ballot, and then the backside will have the special general election, and making the instructions very, very clear.
Thank you. And Ms. Jones?
Thank you. That was one of my questions. What a challenge to have a concurrent general and special election. So very interesting how it's going to be set up. Thank you. The last thing I wanted to say is Gail, and I mentioned before, Gail and Alaskans for Better Elections made this presentation in November at the AML conference, and it was so good. I contacted Gail then and asked if she could come and present to the assembly because I knew the assembly would want to let their constituents know about ranked choice voting. I didn't know that we would both be having special elections that would be distracting people from that. But I do think that there are some really good ideas here about getting your information to us. We'll get that to the assembly, and then the assembly can just forward that to their constituents. We knew that you would have questions from your constituents and wanted to get this information to you. So we'll look forward to that. And if the chair directs us to work with you to set up a special ranked choice mock election for the assembly, we'll be happy to do that too. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. I do want to note a comment from Mr. Cross. I found this extremely helpful, extremely in all caps. Please thank them for me. And I wanted to add to some questions from constituents that I've received have been concerning what elections does ranked choice apply to. Some folks have asked, will this apply to the next presidential election? Will this apply to muni elections? And so thank you for clarifying when it does apply. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually had a call from a constituent yesterday that asked when he was going to be allowed to vote by mail in all state elections. And I told him, well, that hasn't passed the legislature yet. And he's going, well, why not? So there are people that really like the mail-in voting, and you probably already are aware of that. But I just wanted to let you know that. And then he was a little confused whether he was going to be voting in person or through the mail in August. And I told him I thought it was going to be in person. And he goes, well, why can't we do it by mail? So yeah, I think having our local elections by mail is starting to get some people spoiled vote by mail. So anyway, just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
So
There you go.
green means go. Okay. Madam Chair, the August 16th primary / special general election will be the traditional polling place election. We will have early voting and absentee in-person voting locations. People can still vote by mail, but they have to submit an application. And that application is due to get a by mail ballot on August 6th. So we're hoping to really focus on that message. If people they got a state ballot, maybe they're going to just expect one in the primary. So we've got a lot to do to try to clarify that as well.
Thank you. Ms. Jones?
Through the chair, both with the State Division of Elections and the Muni elections, we say it's voter choice, how a voter gets to choose how to vote. They can vote their mailed ballot from the Muni. They can vote in person at one of our vote centers. They can vote by fax or email. In the state, voters also have a choice. And the director just explained to you some of those voter choices. They have to apply to vote. In some circumstances, voters have to apply with us too. So we have information on our website. We connect voters to the state all the time, and we'll do whatever we can. If you want to have your constituent contact the voter hotline or elections@anchorageak.gov, we'll get them to the state website where they can find that application to apply to vote by mail.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Any final thoughts either of you would like to share?
Madam Chair, just appreciate the opportunity to once again get out and educate voters on this. I'm happy to leave our PowerPoint presentation. You can take it and use it. AARP has, they've done a great train the trainer session, and they actually have trained members to go out and do presentations in the community. So we're very thankful for that partnership with them. So we're hoping to help get the word out also to senior citizens. I was asked to make a presentation in Kenai, so we're trying to make that work. So, but definitely go through the PowerPoint as many times as you want, use it, share it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fanumi, and thank you for all your work too with the elections and coordinating this big change, and for being here today and providing this information. Thank you as well, Ms. Moser. It's a pleasure to have you both here, and thanks to Ms. Jones and Ms. Hines as well. Seeing no other questions or comments, we will go ahead and adjourn. Thank you again. We are adjourned. And thanks for the candy.
Yeah, if you want to take some home to your friends, family, neighbors, there's plenty.